What would you do to escape a disastrous blind date? Lila Kessler takes a bold move. She kisses a stranger in the heart of Asheville, unaware he's Theo Warden, a billionaire CEO. What starts as an impulsive plan turns into a fake engagement, filled with intrigue, secrets, and an unexpected connection. Will Lila unmask the ambitious Cassandra, who threatens everything? And what does a mysterious notebook from her mother reveal about WardenTech? Dive into this romance, packed with twists, and discover if love can spark from a stolen kiss. Ready to dive into a story brimming with passion, secrets, and twists? Before we follow Lila and Theo's journey, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. This way, you'll stay in the loop for all our thrilling tales of suspense and romance. Joining a community that lives for every new chapter, let's uncover together what happens when one impulsive kiss changes everything. The late summer sun cast a golden glow over Asheville, North Carolina, as Lila Kessler pushed open the door to Blue Ridge Brew, a cozy cafe nestled in the heart of downtown. The air smelled of freshly roasted coffee and warm pastries, and the hum of conversation mingled with the soft strum of an acoustic guitar from a street performer outside. Lila, 25, with her long chestnut hair pulled into a loose ponytail and her green eyes scanning the room, felt a knot in her stomach. She wasn't here for the ambience, she was here for a blind date. One she'd only agreed to because her best friend Nora Finch had practically begged her. Lila, you can't just bury yourself in code forever, Nora had said over the phone the night before, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. You're young, brilliant, and, frankly, way too single. Greg's a catch, trust me. He's a friend of a friend, works in insurance, super stable. You'll love him. Lila hadn't loved the idea, but after the spectacular crash of her Startup promising app for connecting local artisans that tanked when investors pulled out, she'd been in a rut. Maybe Nora was right. Maybe a date would shake things up. So, here she was, in her favorite navy sweater and jeans, trying to muster some excitement as she spotted a man waving from a corner table. Hi, you must be Lila, Greg Hammond said, standing up with a grin that was a little too wide. He was 30, stocky, with slicked back hair and a suit that screamed, I'm trying too hard. He extended a hand, and Lila shook it, noting his overly firm grip. Nora's told me all about you. Sit, sit. Thanks for meeting me, Lila, said, sliding into the chair across from him. She forced a smile, hoping her nerves wouldn't betray her. The cafe was bustling couples chatting, a barista calling out orders, the clink of mugs creating a lively backdrop. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad, but 10 minutes in, Lila knew she'd made a mistake. Greg was a talker, and not the good kind. So, I closed a deal last week. Huge client, 6 figures, he boasted, barely pausing to sip his latte. Insurance isn't glamorous, but it's steady. You wouldn't believe how many people mess up their coverage because they don't listen to guys like me. Lila nodded politely, stirring her cappuccino, but her mind wandered. She'd spent the last 6 months debugging code in her tiny apartment, eating instant noodles, and dodging calls from her dad, who kept asking when she'd get a real job. This date was supposed to be a break, not a lecture. That sounds intense, she said, trying to steer the conversation. What do you do for fun? Fun, Greg chuckled, leaning back. Work's my fun. I mean, I golf sometimes, but mostly I'm grinding. You gotta hustle to get ahead. You know what about you? Nora said. You're into computers or something. I'm a software developer, Lila said, her voice steady despite her growing irritation. I was working on an app to connect local artists with buyers, but it didn't pan out. Now I'm freelancing, figuring out my next move. Greg's eyebrows shot up, but not in an impressed way. An app, huh? Yeah, startups are risky. Should have gone for something safer, like insurance. I could hook you up with a policy, keep you covered while you're figuring things out. He winked, and Lila's stomach churned. Thanks, but I'm good, she said, her smile tightening. She glanced around the cafe, desperate for an escape. A couple at a nearby table was laughing over a shared pastry. A guy in a flannel was reading a book in the corner. Everyone else seemed to be having a better time than she was. Greg didn't notice her discomfort. Women in tech, though, that's cute, he continued, leaning forward. But it's tough, right? I mean, it's a guy's world out there. You ever think about switching to something less stressful? My sister's a teacher, loves it. Stable hours, good benefits. Lila's grip on her mug tightened. I like stress, she said, her tone sharper than intended. Keeps me sharp. Coding's not just a job, it's who I am. Greg laughed, like she'd told a joke. Sure, but you don't want to be one of those career girls forever, right? Gotta settle down eventually. I'm looking for someone who's, ready to prioritize family. That's what matters. Lila stared at him, her patience evaporating. This guy didn't know her, didn't care to know her, and was already planning her life. She glanced at her phone, only 20 minutes into this disaster. Nora owed her big time. Excuse me, she said, pushing her chair back. I need some air. Greg frowned. We're just getting started. You okay? I'm fine, she lied, standing up. I'll be right back. She didn't plan to come back. As she wove through the crowded cafe, her heart raced not from nerves, but from a sudden, reckless urge to take control. She wasn't going to sit through another minute of Greg's nonsense. Her eyes landed on a man sitting alone near the window, his dark hair slightly tousled, his blue eyes focused. On a tablet, he looked calm, confident, out of place in the casual chaos of the cafe. Perfect. Lila didn't think twice. She marched over, her sneakers squeaking on the wooden floor, and stopped in front of him. Hi, she said, her voice loud enough for Greg to hear across the room. Sorry I kept you waiting. The man looked up, startled, his eyebrows rising. Do I know you? Nope, Lila whispered, leaning closer, her heart pounding. Just play along, please. I need to ditch a bad date. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she cupped his face and kissed him quick-bowled, and just long enough to make a point. His lips were warm, and for a split second, she forgot why she was doing this. When she pulled back, the man blinked, a slow grin spreading across his face. Well, that's one way to say hello, he said, his voice low and amused. Lila turned, catching Greg's stunned expression from across the room. Sorry, Greg, she called out, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I just realized I'm with someone way better. Greg's face reddened. You serious? You're just gonna— Yep, Lila cut him off, grabbing her bag. Have a nice life. She glanced at the stranger, who was now leaning back in his chair, clearly entertained. Thanks for the assist, she said under her breath, then headed for the door, her pulse racing with adrenaline. Outside the cool mountain, air hit her face, and she laughed a real, shaky laugh. She'd never done anything that crazy before. As she started down the street, she didn't notice the man from the cafe watching her go, his grin fading into something more thoughtful. What Lila didn't know was that the stranger wasn't just some random guy. He was Theo Warden, 32, CEO of WardenTech, a company revolutionizing renewable energy. He'd come to Asheville to scout locations for a new wind turbine project, not to get roped into a stranger's escape plan. But something about Lila's boldness stuck with him. And when his grandfather, Walter Warden, who'd been sipping coffee at a nearby table, saw the whole thing, he got an idea that would change everything. Lila Kessler, Theo muttered to himself, pocketing his tablet. Your trouble. He didn't know her name yet, but he was about to find out. Lila Kessler's heart was still hammering as she stood in the middle of Blue Ridge Brew, her lips tingling from the impulsive kiss she'd just planted on a complete stranger. The cafe buzzed around her barista's steaming milk, the clatter of ceramic mugs, and the faint hum of a folk song drifting in from the street. Asheville's late summer evening painted the windows with a warm amber glow, but all Lila could focus on was the man in front of her, his blue eyes wide with surprise and a hint of amusement. She'd just kissed him, some random guy in a crisp, button-down, to ditch Greg Hammond, the world's most insufferable blind date. And now, everyone was staring. Whoa, the stranger said, his voice low and smooth, with a touch of a southern drawl that made Lila's stomach flip. He leaned back in his chair, one eyebrow arched. You always greet people like that? Or am I just lucky? Lila's cheeks burned, but she forced a grin, keeping her voice low so Greg, still gaping from across the room, wouldn't hear. Sorry, I just needed an out. Bad date. You were the closest escape route. The man Theo Warden, though Lila didn't know that, yet cold, his gaze flicking toward Greg, who was now standing, his face a mix of shock and indignation. Bad date, huh? That guy. He nodded toward Greg, who was clutching his latte. like it was his lifeline. He looks like he's about to pitch a fit. Lila glanced over her shoulder. Greg was weaving through the tables, his suit jacket flapping, his expression a mix of confusion and bruised ego. "Lila, what the hell?" he called, loud enough to turn heads. "You're just gonna kiss some random dude and bail?" She turned. Back to Theo, her pulse racing. "Play along for like 2 more seconds," she whispered, her green eyes pleading. "I'll owe you one." Theo's grin widened, and he stood casually draping an arm around her shoulders like they'd known each other forever. "Sweetheart, you didn't tell me you were stuck with this guy," he said, loud enough for Greg to hear, his tone dripping with mock sympathy. "Sorry, man," she scaped him. Lila bit her lip to keep from laughing. The guy was good to good. He smelled faintly of cedar and leather, and his arm felt steady, like he wasn't fazed by the chaos she'd just unleashed. The cafe patrons were watching now, some whispering, others smirking. A barista paused mid-pour, clearly eavesdropping. Stopped a few feet away, his face redder than the cafe's brick walls. "You're kidding me, right? You're with him?" He gestured at Theo like he was pointing at a used car. "What? You met him 5 minutes ago." "Long enough to know he's better company," Lila shot back, leaning into Theo's side for effect. Her heart was doing somersaults, but she kept her chin up, determined to sell the act. "Sorry, Greg, this isn't working." "Good luck with your insurance deals," Greg sputtered, running a hand through his slicked back hair. "You're making a mistake, Lila. I'm a catch you'll regret this." He grabbed his jacket from the chair and stormed toward the door, muttering something about crazy lemon. The cafe door chimed as he left, and Lila let out a breath she hadn't realized. She stepped away from Theo, her bravado fading. "Okay, wow, that was intense. Thanks for not freaking out." Theo shrugged, slipping his hands into his pockets. "I've had weirder Tuesdays. You okay, though? That guy seemed like a real piece of work." "Yeah, I'm fine," Lila said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. She glanced at him, taking in his dark, slightly messy hair, and the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. He didn't look like he belonged in a small-town cafe. He had a quiet confidence, like he was used to commanding rooms. I just couldn't sit through another minute of his hustle-hard speech. "I'm Lila, by the way." "Theo," he said, offering a hand. His grip was firm but warm, and Lila felt a spark she wasn't expecting. "Nice to meet you, Lila. Gotta say, you've got a flair for dramatic exits." She laughed, a real laugh this time, the kind that made her shoulders relax. Desperate times, you know. "Nora's gonna kill me when she hears I tanked her setup, but it was worth it." "Nora's the matchmaker?" Theo asked, sliding back into his seat and gesturing for her to join him. She must have missed the mark with that guy. "Big time," Lila said, hesitating before sitting across from him. She didn't want to overstay her welcome, but something about Theo made her want to keep talking. "She's my best friend, but her taste in guys is questionable." "What about you? What's your story, sitting here all mysterious with your tablet?" Theo's lips twitched, like he was debating how much to share. "Just passing through," he said, tapping the tablet screen, which showed a spreadsheet filled with numbers and graphs. "Work stuff, scouting some land for a project." "Not as exciting as your grand escape." Lila raised an eyebrow. "Scouting land in Asheville." "What? You're building a cabin or something?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "Something bigger. But I'll spare you the details, it's boring compared to your stunt." He leaned forward, his eyes glinting with curiosity. "So, what's next for you, Lila? You kiss random guys in cafes often, or is this a one-time thing?" She smirked, crossing her arms. "First time, I swear. I'm usually more calculated. I'm a coder, so I'm all about logic. This was just a glitch in the system. A coder, huh?" Theo's interest seemed genuine, not the patronizing kind she'd gotten from Greg. "What do you code?" "Apps." "Mostly," she said, relaxing into the conversation. "I had a startup that was going to connect local artists with buyers, but it crashed and burned. Now I'm freelancing, trying to figure out my next big idea." "That's tough," Theo said, nodding. "Startups are brutal, but you don't strike me as someone who gives up easy." Lila felt a warmth spread through her, surprised by how much his words meant. "Thanks, I'm not done yet. Just recalibrating." Their conversation flowed easily, the cafe's chatter fading into the background. Lila told him about her love for coding, how she'd stay up all night debugging lines that wouldn't cooperate, Theo shared stories of his travels carefully, vague about his work, but animated about the mountains he'd hiked in Asheville. For a moment, it felt like they weren't strangers at all, but their chat was interrupted by an older man who approached their table, his silver hair neatly combed, and his suit impeccably tailored. "Theo, you didn't tell me you were bringing a date," he said, his voice gruff but warm. His eyes twinkling as he looked at Lila. Theo stiffened slightly, then recovered with a smile. "Grandpa, this is Lila. Lila, my grandfather, Walter." Warden Lila's eyes widened. "Grandpa." She hadn't noticed the older man watching from a nearby table during her stunt. "Nice to meet you," she said, shaking Walter's hand, her mind racing. Why did this feel like more than a chance encounter? Walter's gaze was sharp, assessing. "Quite a show you put on, young lady." Theo's not usually one for public displays, but you got his attention. He chuckled, then leaned closer to Theo, lowering his voice. "She's got spirit. Don't let this one slip away." Theo rolled his eyes, but there was a flicker of something in his expression intrigue. Maybe, "Grandpa, don't start." Lila laughed nervously, sensing she'd stumbled into something bigger than a fake breakup. "I should probably go," she said, standing. "Thanks again, Theo. Sorry for dragging you into my mess." "No mess," Theo said, standing too. "You made my night interesting. Safe travels, Lila." As she left the cafe, the mountain air cooling her flushed cheeks, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just set something in motion. Back at the table, Walter was already scheming. "Theo, that girl's a keeper," he said, sipping his coffee. "The board's been breathing down your neck about settling down. This could be your chance." Theo sighed, watching Lila disappear down the street. "She's not my type, Grandpa. Besides, I'm here for the project, not a girlfriend." Walter smirked. "We'll see about that." Unbeknownst to Lila, Theo was no ordinary guy. As the CEO of WardenTech, he was in Asheville to secure a deal for a wind turbine project that could transform the region's energy landscape, and Walter, the retired founder of WardenTech, saw Lila's boldness as the perfect solution to a problem Theo didn't even know he had. The kiss, impulsive and fleeting, was about to change everything. Lila Kessler stepped out of Blue Ridge Brew into the crisp Asheville evening, her breath catching in the mountain air. The streets of downtown buzzed with live streetlights flickered on, casting a warm glow over cobblestone sidewalks, and a group of tourists laughed as they snapped photos of a mural across the street. Her heart still raced from the impulsive kiss she'd planted on Theo Warden, a stranger who'd played along with her escape from Greg, the worst blind date in history. As she pulled her navy sweater tighter, Lila couldn't help but grin. She'd just done something wild, and it felt good. But as she turned the corner toward her apartment, she had no idea that the kiss wasn't the end of her night. It was just the beginning. Back in the cafe, Theo Warden sat across from his grandfather, Walter, who was stirring his coffee with a sly grin. The older man's silver hair gleamed under the cafe's Edison bulbs, and his sharp eyes were fixed on Theo. "That girl's got fire," Walter said, leaning back in his chair. "Lila, was it? She's exactly what you need." Theo rolled his eyes, tapping his tablet to pull up a map of potential wind turbine sites. "Grandpa, she's a stranger who kissed me to ditch some jerk. That's not exactly a love story." He glanced out the window where Lila had disappeared. Her defiant stride burned into his memory. She was bold, sure, but he was here for work, not romance. WardenTech's new project and network of wind turbines in the Blue Ridge Mountains was his focus, and the board was already skeptical about his leadership at 32. He didn't need distractions. Walter wasn't buying it. "You're missing the point, son," he said, his voice low but firm. "The board's been hounding you about stability. They want a family man, someone who looks settled. That kiss, it's a gift. You play it right, and Lila could be the key to sealing this deal." Theo frowned, setting the tablet down. "You're not serious. You want me to what? Pretend to be engaged to a woman I just met? That's insane." "Is it?" Walter countered, raising an eyebrow. "You saw how she handled that idiot. She's quick, she's smart, and she's got charm. The board eats that up. Plus, I saw the way you looked at her. Don't pretend you didn't feel something." Theo's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. There had been a spark when Lila kissed him, a jolt he couldn't quite shake. Her green eyes, fierce and playful, had lingered in his mind. But this was business, not a rom-com. Even if I wanted to, how do you propose I convince a total stranger to play my fiancé? Walter's grin widened. Leave that to me. The next morning, Lila woke to the smell of burnt toast in her tiny apartment, a converted loft above a bookstore. Sunlight streamed through the skylight, illuminating her cluttered desk laptop, sticky notes, and a half-finished energy drink from a late-night coding session. She was still buzzing from last night's stunt, replaying Theo's amused grin. In her head, "Stupid," she muttered, pulling on a hoodie. "You kissed a random guy, Lila. What were you thinking?" Her phone buzzed with a text from Nora. "You blow up a date with a perfectly good guy and kiss some stranger? Call me now." Lila groaned. Nora was going to be relentless. Before she could reply, there was a knock at her door, sharp, insistent. Frowning, she opened it to find a man in a tailored suit, his silver hair and piercing eyes instantly recognizable as the grandfather from the cafe. "Mr. Warden," Lila said, stepping back. What are you doing here?" "Call me Walter," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. He glanced around her apartment, taking in the mismatched furniture and the tangle of charging cables. "Nice place. Cozy, thanks." Lila crossed her arms, her guard up. "How did you even find me?" Walter chuckled, settling into her thrift store armchair like he owned it. "I've got resources, Lila, and I've got a proposition for you." She raised an eyebrow, leaning against the counter. "Proposition. Look, if this is about last night, I'm sorry I dragged your grandson into my drama. It was a one-time thing." "Oh, I'm counting on it being more than that," Walter said, his tone too cheerful for comfort. "You're a coder, right? Had a startup that didn't quite make it? I did some digging. You're talented, but you're broke. I can help." With that, Lila's stomach twisted. This was getting weird. "What do you want, Walter?" He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with purpose. "I want you to pretend to be Theo's fiancé for 3 months. WardenTech's pitching a big project, wind turbines, game changer for the region. The board's old-fashioned. They want Theo to look stable, married, the whole package. You play the part, and I'll fund your next app. Whatever you need, 100 grand, 200, you name it." Lila stared, her mouth slightly open. "You're joking? You want me to fake an engagement?" "With Theo? I don't even know him." "You knew him well enough to kiss him," Walter pointed out, smirking, and he didn't seem to mind. "Look, it's a business deal. 3 months, a few public appearances, maybe a gala or two. You get your funding, Theo gets his project, and everyone wins." Lila's mind raced. 100 grand could get her app off the ground. Something better than her last one. Maybe a platform for sustainable tech startups, but pretending to be engaged to a guy she'd met for 5 minutes. And what does Theo think about this? "He'll come around," Walter said with a wave of his hand. "Meet him for lunch. Talk it over. He's at the Omni Grove Park in 1 o'clock. Just hear him out." Lila arrived at the historic hotel, her sneakers out of place against the polished stone floors and grand chandeliers. The Grove Park Inn was Asheville's crown jewel, with views of the Blue Ridge Mountains that took her breath away. She spotted Theo at a table on the terrace, his dark hair catching the sunlight, a glass of iced tea in front of him. He looked up as she approached, his expression a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Lila," he said, standing. "Didn't expect to see you so soon. My grandfather roped you into this, didn't he?" "Yeah," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. "He showed up at my apartment like some kind of mob boss. What's his deal? He wants us to fake an engagement." Theo sighed, running a hand through his hair. "That's Walter. He's persistent. Look, I'm sorry he dragged you into this. WardenTech's board is breathing down my neck about this wind turbine project. They think I'm too young, too single, too whatever. Walter thinks a fiancé will make me look stable. It's ridiculous." Lila leaned back, crossing her arms. "Ridiculous, but not impossible. He offered to fund my app." "That's hard." To turn down, Theo's eyes narrowed, studying her. "You're actually considering this?" "Maybe," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "I'm not thrilled about lying, but I need a win. My last startup tanked, and I'm tired of scraping by. What about you? You in or out?" Theo hesitated, his gaze drifting to the mountains. "I don't love it, but this project hit's not just about profit. It's clean energy, jobs for Asheville, a legacy. If a fake engagement gets it done, he looked back at her, a spark in his eyes. You're not what I expected, Lila Kessler, she smirked. You're not so bad yourself, Theo Warden. So, what's the deal? We hold hands, smile for photos, and split in 3 months. Something like that? He said, a reluctant smile tugging at his lips. But we'll need ground rules. No kissing unless it's for show. And no falling for each other, that's a complication we don't need. Deal, Lila said, extending her hand. They shook, and she ignored the warmth of his touch. This was business, nothing more. As they hashed out the details, public appearances, a backstory about meeting at a tech conference, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that she was diving into deep water. Theo was charming, sure, but he was also a CEO with a world she didn't belong in. And Walter's plan felt too neat, too controlled. What was she missing? As they parted ways, Theo's phone buzzed with a text from his grandfather. She's perfect. Don't screw this up. Theo shook his head, but his thoughts lingered on Lila's fearless grin. Meanwhile, across town, Cassandra Holt, a WardenTech executive with her own agenda, caught wind of Theo's new fiancé. Her eyes narrowed. As she scrolled through Lila's sparse online profile, this nobody from nowhere wasn't going to ruin her plans. Lila Kessler adjusted the strap of her backpack as she walked down Biltmore Avenue, the heart of Asheville's downtown pulsing around her. The late August breeze carried the scent of grilled food from food trucks and the distant twang of a banjo. From a street performer, it had been 2 days since her lunch with Theo Warden at the Grove Park, and where she'd agreed to a wild plan, pretend to be his fiancé for 3 months to secure his wind turbine project and fund her dream app. Her head was still spinning. She'd gone from kissing a stranger to escape a bad date to signing up for a fake engagement with a CEO she barely knew. And yet, every time she thought of Theo's easy smile or the way his blue eyes lit up when he talked about his project, her stomach did a little flip. Get a grip, Lila, she muttered, dodging a group of tourists, snapping selfies by a mural. This was business, not a fairy tale. Her phone buzzed with a call from Nora Finch, her best friend and the mastermind behind the disastrous blind date with Greg. Lila sighed, knowing she couldn't avoid this forever. She answered, bracing herself. Hey, Nora. Hey. Hey. Nora's voice was a mix of exasperation and worry. Lila, you ditched Greg, kissed some rando in a cafe, and now I hear you're engaged. What's going on? Are you having a quarter life? Crisis. Lila laughed, despite herself, and ducked into a quiet alley to talk. It's not like that, okay? Maybe it's a little like that, but it's complicated. Theo's not just some rando. He's nice, and it's not a real engagement. There was a long pause. Not real. Nora's tone softened, but there was an edge to it. Lila, you're not making sense. You met this guy 2 days ago, and now you're playing house. Who is he, and why do I feel like you're hiding something? Lila bit her lip, leaning against a brick wall. She'd always told Nora everything late-night coding sessions, her startup's collapse, her mom's old engineering journals, but this felt too big, too absurd. Look, it's a deal, okay? Theo's got this big project, and I'm helping him out. In return, I get funding for my app. It's temporary. 3 months, tops. Nora groaned. A deal. Lila, this sounds like a scam, or a rom-com gone wrong. What do you even know about this guy? What if he's like a con artist? He's not, Lila said, though a tiny part of her wondered. Theo seemed genuine, but he was a CEO, and CEOs didn't get to that level by being soft. His grandfather's involved, too. It's legit, I think. You think? Nora's voice rose. Lila, you're too smart for this. Come over tonight. We'll eat ice cream, watch bad movies, and you'll tell me everything. I'm not letting you dive into this without a reality check. Lila smiled, warmed by Nora's concern. Fine, deal, but no lecturing, okay? I know what I'm doing. She didn't, not really, but she wasn't about to admit that. Meanwhile, across town in WardenTech's temporary Asheville office leak, glass-walled space overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains, Theo Warden was staring at a stack of reports, his mind only half on the numbers. The wind turbine project was his baby, a chance to bring clean energy and jobs to the region. But the board's doubts about his leadership were a constant weight. And now, thanks to his grandfather Walter, He was fake engaged to Lila Kessler, a woman who'd crashed into his life like a rogue line of code. He couldn't stop thinking about those green eyes, that fearless streak, the way she'd kissed him without hesitation. "Focus, Theo," he muttered, rubbing his temples. His office door swung open, and Cassandra Holt strode in, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. At 35, Cassandra was WardenTech's VP of Operations, sharp as a tack and twice as ambitious. Her blonde hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her tailored blazer screamed power. "Theo," she said, her voice smooth but edged with something colder. "I hear congratulations are in order. Engaged, that's..." Sudden, Theo leaned back in his chair, keeping his expression neutral. "News travels fast. It's new. Yeah, Lila's great." Cassandra's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure. Though I was surprised to hear about her. No one's heard of this Lila Kessler. No LinkedIn, no big tech cred. She's a freelancer, right? Bit of an odd choice for you." Theo's jaw tightened. He'd known Cassandra since college. She'd been a friend, a confidant, and lately, a subtle rival. She wanted his job, and she wasn't shy about it. "She's not an odd choice," he said evenly. "She's smart, driven. You'll like her when you meet her." "Oh, I can't wait," Cassandra said, perching on the edge of his desk. She picked up a model of a wind turbine, twirling it in her fingers. "Just hope she's ready for the spotlight. The board's picky, and the gala next week is a big deal. People talk Theo, they'll dig into her. Hope she's not hiding anything." Theo's gut twisted. Cassandra's words were a warning, and he didn't miss the glint in her eye. She was fishing, maybe even planning something. "Lila can handle herself," he said, standing to signal the conversation was over. "Thanks for the concern, Cass. I've got a meeting." She smirked, setting the model down. "Of course, just looking out for you." As she left, Theo exhaled, his mind racing. He needed to warn Lila Cassandra wasn't someone to underestimate that evening. Lila met Theo at Pack Square Park for their first public appearance as a fake couple. The park was alive with a summer festival, string lights twinkled. Food vendors sold barbecue, and a local band played upbeat folk tunes. Lila wore a simple green dress, her hair loose, feeling out of place among the well-dressed crowd. Theo, in a tailored jacket and jeans, looked effortlessly at ease. But his eyes were serious when he spotted her. "You clean up nice," he said, offering a crooked smile as he handed her a lemonade, ready to play the part. Lila took a sip, the tartness grounding her. "As ready as I'll ever be." "What's the plan?" "Smile, wave, pretend I'm head over heels." "Pretty much," Theo said, guiding her toward a group of local business owners. "Just be yourself." "Well, a version of yourself who's wildly in love with me," she snorted. "Big ask, Warden." But as they mingled, her arm linked with his, she felt a warmth she hadn't expected. Theo was charming, cracking jokes about Asheville's quirky art scene, and when he introduced her as his fiancée, his hand lingered on her back, steady and reassuring. For a moment, she forgot it was a lie. But the moment shattered when a woman approached, her blonde hair gleaming under the festival lights. "Theo, darling," she said, her voice dripping with honey. "And this must be Lila. I'm Cassandra, Holt WardenTech's VP. Such a pleasure." Lila's instincts screamed trouble. Cassandra's handshake was too tight, her smile too sharp. "Nice to meet you," Lila said, matching her tone. "Theo's told me about you. All good things." "I hope," Cassandra said, her eyes flicking to Theo. "We go way back. I was so curious to meet the woman who swept him off his feet. You're a coder, right? Freelance?" "Yeah," Lila said, keeping her voice steady. "Working on some projects, keeping busy." Cassandra's smile didn't waver. "How sweet. Must be hard, though, jumping into Theo's world. It's intense. Hope you're ready for the scrutiny." Before Lila could respond, Theo cut in, his tone light but firm. "Lila's tougher than she looks. Cass, she's got this." His hand squeezed Lila's arm, a silent signal of support. As Cassandra drifted off to charm a group of investors, Lila leaned closer to Theo. "She's gunning for me, isn't she?" "Probably," Theo admitted, his voice low. "She's ambitious, doesn't like surprises. Just stay sharp." Lila nodded, but her mind was racing. Nora's doubts, Cassandra's veiled threats, and the growing warmth she felt around Theo, it was all too much. Later that night, as she lay in bed. Her phone lit up with an anonymous text. "Careful, Lila. Not everyone buys your love story." Her heart sank. Someone was watching, and the gala next week would be her first real test across town. Theo stared at a photo from the festival, Lila laughing, her eyes bright under the lights. He didn't want to admit it, but he was starting to like her, maybe too much. And with Cassandra circling and the gala looming, he wondered if this charade was about to get a lot more complicated. The grand ballroom of the Biltmore estate glowed under crystal chandeliers, their light reflecting off polished oak floors and casting a warm sheen over the crowd of Asheville's elite. The gala, a fundraiser for local environmental initiatives, was in full swing. Women in glittering gowns, men in tailored tuxedos, and the hum of conversation mingling with the clink of champagne glasses. Lila Kessler stood near a towering floral arrangement, her emerald green gown hugging her frame. Feeling like an imposter in a world of wealth and power, her chestnut hair was swept into an elegant updo, courtesy of Nora's last-minute styling. But the weight of the anonymous text from 2 nights ago, "Careful, Lila, not everyone buys your love story," still gnawed at her. She scanned the room, half expecting to see Cassandra Holt's sharp smile in the crowd, ready to pounce. Theo Warden appeared at her side, looking unfairly good in a black tuxedo, his dark hair tamed but still carrying that effortless charm. "You look like you're about to bolt," he said, his voice low, a teasing glint in his blue eyes as he handed her a flute of champagne. "Relax, Lila. You're my fiancée tonight, remember?" Lila took the glass, her fingers brushing his, sending an unexpected jolt through her. "Easy for you to say," she muttered, taking a sip to steady her nerves. "You're used to this fancy galas, rich people, all that. I'm just a coder who's way out of her depth." Theo chuckled, leaning closer so only she could hear. "You're doing fine. Half these people are faking it too. Just smile and nod when they talk about their yachts." He straightened, offering his arm. "Come on, we've got a show to put on." Lila looped her arm through her heart, doing a traitorously fast beat. The festival at Pack Square Park had been their first test as a couple, but this gala was the real deal. WardenTech's board members, local investors, and media were all here watching their every move. As they moved through the crowd, Theo introduced her with easy confidence. "Lila Kessler, my fiancée. She's a brilliant developer, working on some exciting tech." Each introduction made her stomach twist, but Theo's steady presence kept her grounded. His hand on her lower back felt less like a performance and more like something else. They paused near a display of WardenTech's latest projects, including a model of the wind turbines set to transform Asheville's energy landscape. Lila's eyes lit up at the sleek design, her coder's brain already imagining the tech behind it. "This is incredible," she said, forgetting the crowd for a moment. "How do you manage the grid integration? Small towns like this can be tricky with power fluctuations." Theo's eyebrows rose, clearly impressed. "You know your stuff. It's a custom algorithm to balance the load. Want to geek out about it later?" She grinned, caught off guard by how easy it was to talk to him. "Only if you promise not to bore me with corporate buzzwords." For a moment, the gala faded away, and it was just them. Two people who got each other in a way neither expected, but the moment was short-lived. Cassandra Holt glided toward him, her red dress clinging to her like a warning. "Theo, Lila," she said, her voice smooth as silk but sharp as a blade. "You two are the talk of the evening. So sweet, this whirlwind romance." Her eyes locked onto Lila's, searching for a crack in her facade. "Lila, tell me, how did you and Theo meet?" Everyone's dying to know. Lila's pulse spiked, but she kept her smile steady, remembering the backstory they'd rehearsed. "At a tech conference in Raleigh," she said, her voice calm. "I was presenting an app prototype, and Theo was, well, he was asking all the right questions." Cassandra's lips twitched, like she didn't quite buy it. "Charming. And now you're engaged. That's fast, even for a dreamer like Theo." Theo's arm tightened around Lila's waist, a subtle signal. "When you know," he said, his tone light but firm. "Lila's one of a kind." Cassandra's smile didn't waver, but her eyes were cold. Clearly, "Well, enjoy the spotlight, Lila. It can be intense." She drifted off into the crowd, leaving a chill in her. "Wake," Lila exhaled, leaning closer to Theo. "She's definitely plotting something," she whispered. That text I got, I'd bet my laptop it was her. Theo's jaw tightened. I'll keep an eye on her. Just stay close tonight. As the evening progressed, Theo and Lila mingled, their chemistry growing despite the tension. They laughed over a shared joke about Asheville's obsession with craft beer, and when a slow song played, Theo pulled her onto the dance floor. For appearances, he murmured, but his hand on her waist felt personal, his gaze lingering a little too long halfway through the night. Walter Warden took the stage to announce WardenTech's commitment to the Environmental Fund, his silver hair catching the light as he spoke with conviction. "This gala isn't just about celebration," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "It's about legacy. And tonight, I'm proud to share that my grandson, Theo, is building his own legacy, not just with WardenTech, but with someone special by his side." The spotlight swung to Lila and Theo, and the crowd applauded. Lila's cheeks burned, but she managed to smile, gripping Theo's hand. Walter continued to mark this moment. Theo has a gift for his fiancée, a symbol of their shared vision. Theo led Lila to a small table where a sleek, palm-sized device sat, a prototype of WardenTech's portable energy unit capable of powering small devices off-grid. Its matte black casing gleamed, and a tiny green light pulsed like a heartbeat. "This is for you," Theo said, his voice low. "Meant just for her. It's not just tech, it's what we're fighting for. Clean energy, a better future. I thought you'd get it." Lila's breath caught as she picked it up. Her fingers tracing the smooth surface. She'd seen plenty of gadgets, but this was different, personal, meaningful. "Theo, this is—" "I am," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "You're not just playing a part, Lila. You're part of this now." The crowd cooed, assuming it was a romantic gesture, but for Lila, it was more. Theo saw her not as a coder scraping by, but as someone who could hold her own in his world. Her heart thudded, and she wondered if she was crossing a line she'd promised not to, as they returned to the dance floor. Walter watched from the sidelines, a satisfied smile on his face, but across the room, Cassandra's expression was anything but pleased. She sipped her wine, her mind racing. Lila Kessler was a problem, and she wasn't about to let some small-town coder derail her plans for WardenTech or Theo. Later, as Lila slipped away to the restroom, she found a note slipped into her clutch. "You don't belong here. Back out. Now, or everyone will know the truth." Her stomach dropped. The handwriting was elegant, precise, Cassandra's, she was sure. But what truth? Did Cassandra know the engagement was fake, or was she bluffing? Back at the table, Lila showed Theo the note, her voice low. "She's not stopping, is she?" Theo's face darkened. "No, but neither are we." He took her hand, his grip firm. "We'll figure this out, Lila, together." As they left the gala, the mountain air cool against her skin, Lila clutched the prototype, its weight grounding her. Theo's gift had changed something between them. But the note was a reminder. This charade was dangerous, and someone was watching her every move. Back in her apartment, Lila pulled out her mother's old engineering journal. Its pages filled with sketches of energy systems eerily similar to WardenTech's designs. Could her mom have been connected to this world? The question burned, pulling her deeper into a mystery she wasn't sure she was ready to unravel. Lila Kessler sat cross-legged on her worn-out couch, the dim glow of a single lamp illuminating her cramped Asheville loft. The city outside was quiet, save for the occasional hum of a car on the street below, but her mind was anything but. The prototype energy device Theo Warden had given her at the Billionaire Gala sat on her coffee table, its green light pulsing softly, like a heartbeat. It was more than a gift, it was a symbol of trust, a connection she hadn't expected to feel with the CEO. She was supposed to be fake engaged too. But the crumpled note she'd found in her clutch haunted her. "You don't belong here. Back out now, or everyone will know the truth." Cassandra Holt's elegant handwriting was unmistakable, and Lila's gut told her the WardenTech VP was digging, looking for a way to unravel their charade. Lila's eyes drifted to the leather-bound journal on her lap, her mother's, filled with sketches and notes from her days as an environmental engineer. Lila had found it years ago, after her mom's death in a car accident when she was 16. But she'd never studied it closely until now. The gala had stirred something: Theo's passion for clean energy. The prototype, the way WardenTech's mission, echoed her mother's dreams. She flipped through the pages, her fingers tracing diagrams of energy systems, equations scrawled. In her mom's neat hand, one sketch caught her eye, a compact energy unit eerily similar to the prototype Theo had given her. "No way," Lila whispered, her heart racing. Could her mom have been connected to WardenTech? She grabbed her laptop, the screen casting a blue glow over her face as she dove into a rabbit hole of research. WardenTech's history was founded by Walter Warden in the 80s, a leader in renewable energy by the 2000s, but the details were sparse. No mention of an engineer named Lila Kessler. Lila's fingers flew across the keyboard, searching old forums, patent databases, anything that might link her mom to the company. She found a cryptic post from 2005. On an obscure tech blog, heard WardenTech's early designs came from a brilliant woman who left suddenly. Anyone know her name? The thread was dead, but it was enough to make Lila's pulse quicken. "Lila, you're obsessed," she muttered to herself, rubbing her eyes. It was 2 a.m. and her energy drink was long gone. But she couldn't stop. Her mom had worked with WardenTech. Why had she never mentioned it? And why did her designs look so much like Theo's prototype? Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her spiral. A text from Theo. "You up? Got a board meeting tomorrow. Need you there? 10 a.m. WardenTech office." Lila groaned, flopping back on the couch. Pretending to be Theo's fiancée was one thing, facing a room full of corporate bigwigs was another. But the memory of his hand on her waist at the gala, the way he'd trusted her with the prototype, made her tight back. "I'll be there. Don't make me regret this." The next morning, Lila walked into WardenTech's Asheville office, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. The space was all glass and steel, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the Blue Ridge Mountains. She'd swapped her usual hoodie for a blazer and slacks, but she still felt like a kid playing dress-up. Theo met her at the reception, his smile easing her nerves. "You look like you're about to face a firing squad," he said, handing her a coffee. "It's just a meeting." Smile, nod, charm the socks off them. "Easy for you," Lila said, sipping the coffee. "You're not the one pretending to be someone you're not." Theo's eyes softened. "You're not pretending, Lila. You're you, just with a temporary ring on your finger." He glanced at her left hand, where a simple gold band gleamed, courtesy of Walter's insistence. "Ready?" She nodded, ignoring the flutter in her chest. "Let's do this." The boardroom was intimidating. 12 suits around a mahogany table, their eyes dissecting her as Theo introduced her. "Lila Kessler." "My fiancée," he said, his voice steady. "She's a developer with a sharp mind for tech. She's been a huge support for the turbine project." Lila forced a smile, her palms sweaty. Most of the board members nodded politely, but one, a stern woman with gray hair, leaned forward. "Ms. Kessler, your engagement seems sudden," she said, her tone clipped. "What's your background? We like to know who's influencing our CEO." Lila's throat tightened, but she channeled her coder's logic. "I'm a software developer, focused on apps for local businesses," she said, her voice steady. "I met Theo at a tech conference, and we clicked over a shared passion for innovation. I'm not here to influence his work, just to support him." Theo squeezed her hand under the table. A silent, "Nice job." But before she could relax, Cassandra Holt spoke up from the end of the table, her smile razor sharp. "That's lovely," she said, "but I'm curious, Lila. Freelancing must be tough. No unsavory side gigs to make ends meet." The room went quiet, and Lila's blood ran cold. Cassandra was fishing, hinting at something to discredit her. Theo's grip tightened, but Lila leaned forward, her eyes locked on Cassandra's. "I code, I hustle, and I pay my bills," she said, her voice calm but firm. "No side gigs needed." "Thanks for the concern, though." A few board members chuckled, breaking the tension, but Cassandra's smile didn't falter. She was playing a long game, and Lila knew it. After the meeting, Theo pulled Lila into a quiet corner of the office. "You were amazing in there," he said, his voice low. "Cassandra's trying to rattle you, but you didn't flinch." "She's not subtle," Lila said, crossing her arms. "That note at the gala. Now this? She's got something planned, Theo. I can feel it." He nodded, his expression grim. "I'll talk to Walter, see if he can rein her in. But you need to watch her back. She's not above digging up dirt or making it up." Lila's mind flashed. To the journal, if Cassandra was digging, what would she find? And what if her mom's connection to WardenTech was real? "Theo," she said, hesitating, "there's something I need to ask." Did WardenTech ever work with an engineer named Lila Kessler, maybe 15-20 years ago? Theo frowned, surprised. Not that I know of. Why? She bit her lip, unsure how much to share. Just something I found. It's probably nothing. But the look in his eyes told her he wasn't convinced. That night, Lila met Nora at a dive bar on Haywood Street, the kind of place with sticky floors and neon signs. Over cheap beers, she spilled everything except the part about her mom's journal. Nora listened, her eyes wide. "Lila, this is nuts," she said, shaking her head. "You replaying fiancé for a CEO, dodging his creepy VP, and you're still coding at 3 a.m.? You're gonna burn out." "I know," Lila admitted, swirling her beer. "But this deal could change everything. And Theo, he's not what I expected. He gets me, you know?" Nora's eyebrows shot up. "Oh no, you're falling for him, aren't you?" "No," Lila said too quickly. "It's just, he's not a jerk, that's all." "Unhung," Nora said, smirking. "Just be careful, okay? This whole thing feels like a house of cards." Lila nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. Back home, she dove back into her mom's journal, finding a faded note tucked between pages. WardenTech meeting, 2004. Prototype pitch. Her heart stopped. Her mom had been involved. But why had she left? And what did it mean for Lila now? As she fell asleep, her phone buzzed with another anonymous text. "Digging into the past, Lila. Some secrets are better left buried." Her blood ran cold. Cassandra was closing in, and Lila's investigation was about to put her in the crosshairs. But she wasn't backing down, not when the truth about her mom and her feelings for Theo were on the line. Lila Kessler's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard, the screen's blue glow casting shadows across her cluttered Asheville loft. It was past midnight, and the city outside her skylight was hushed, save for the occasional hoot of an owl. In the distance, the leather-bound journal of her mother, Lila Kessler, lay open beside her, its pages filled with sketches of energy systems that mirrored WardenTech's designs. The note she'd found last night, WardenTech meeting, 2004. Prototype pitch had kept her awake, her mind racing with questions. Had her mom worked with Walter Warden? Why had she left? And why was Cassandra Holt, WardenTech scheming VP, so determined to tear Lila down? The latest anonymous text digging into the past, Lila, some secrets are better left buried, sat heavy in her mind, its threat undeniable. Cassandra knew something, and Lila was done playing defense. She leaned back, rubbing her eyes. The prototype energy device Theo had given her at the Biltmore Gala sat on her desk, its green light pulsing softly. It was more than a gift, it was a clue, a bridge between her mother's past and the present. Lila's gut told her Cassandra's attacks weren't just about the fake engagement. There was something bigger at play, and she was going to find it. "You want to play dirty, Cassandra?" she muttered, cracking her knuckles. "Let's see how you like my code." Lila opened a new terminal window, her coder's instincts kicking in. She'd spent years navigating backdoors and breaking systems for fun ethical hacking. She called it, if Cassandra was hiding something, it was probably in WardenTech servers. Lila had gotten temporary access to the company's network for the Turbine Project's PR campaign, a perk of her fiancé role. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start digging. She sipped a stale energy drink, her focus razor sharp as she probed for weaknesses in the system. Her phone buzzed, startling her. A text from Theo, "Board's getting antsy. Cassandra's stirring the pot. Can you meet me at the office tomorrow?" 8 a.m., Lila's heart skipped. Theo had been her rock through this charade, his steady presence making the lie feel dangerously real. She typed back, "I'll be there. Got something to show you." She didn't mention her late-night hacking session. If she was right, she'd have proof by morning. The next day. Lila walked into WardenTech's glass-walled office, the Blue Ridge Mountains framing the skyline like a postcard. She wore her best blazer, the prototype tucked in her bag, but her nerves were frayed. Theo met her at the entrance, his dark hair slightly mussed, his blue eyes searching hers. "You look like you didn't sleep," he said, handing her a coffee. "Everything okay?" "Not really," Lila admitted, her voice low as they walked toward the boardroom. "Cassandra's up to something. That note at the gala, the text sits, her, Theo, and I think it's tied to the company. Maybe even my mom." Theo's brow furrowed. "Your mom, Lila? What's going on?" She hesitated, glancing around the bustling office. I found her journal. She was an engineer, worked on stuff like your prototype. There's a note about a WardenTech meeting in 2004. I think she was involved, but something happened, and Cassandra, she knows more than she's letting on. Theo's expression darkened. If she's hiding something, we'll find it. But we need to be careful. The board's meeting today to vote on the turbine project. Cassandra's been whispering to them, saying, "I'm distracted by our engagement." Lila's stomach twisted. "She's trying to tank your project and me." "Exactly," Theo said, his hand brushing her arm. "But I've got your back, Lila. We're in this together." The boardroom was packed 12 executives, Walter Warden at the head, his silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Cassandra sat across from Lila, her red lipstick a stark contrast to her cool smile. "Good to see you, Lila," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "I hope you're ready for today's discussion. The board's curious about your role in Theo's life." Lila forced a smile, her laptop burning a hole in her bag. "I'm just here to support Theo," she said, her tone steady. "His project's important for Asheville, for everyone." Walter nodded, his sharp eyes flicking between them. "Let's get to it," he said, opening the meeting. Theo presented the turbine project, his passion clear as he outlined its impact: clean energy, local jobs, a greener future. But the board was skeptical, their questions sharp. "Your focus seems divided, Theo," one member said, glancing at Lila. "This engagement hits sudden. Is it affecting your leadership?" Before Theo could respond, Cassandra leaned forward. "If I may," she said, her voice smooth, "there's been some concern about transparency. I've heard rumors, nothing concrete, of course, but questions. About Ms. Kessler's background, freelancers can be unpredictable. We wouldn't want any surprises derailing this project." Lila's blood boiled. She'd spent all night digging and found something: encrypted files in WardenTech's archives, buried under layers of security. They were financial records, showing payments to a shell company tied to Cassandra. It wasn't enough to prove corruption, but it was a start. "I'm happy to answer any questions," Lila said, her voice calm but firm. "But maybe we should talk about transparency across the board, like, say, undisclosed financial dealings." The room went silent. Cassandra's smile faltered, just for a second. "That's a bold claim, Lila," she said. "Care to elaborate?" "Not yet," Lila said, meeting her gaze. "But I'm working on it." Theo shot her a look, half surprise, half admiration. Walter raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. The meeting moved on, but the tension lingered like a storm cloud. That night, Lila holed up in her loft, her laptop overheating as she cracked the last layer of encryption. The files revealed a pattern. Cassandra had been siphoning funds from WardenTech's R&D budget, funneling them to a dummy corporation. The amounts were small enough to go unnoticed, but added up to millions, enough to sabotage the turbine project if it went to a competitor. Lila's heart raced. This was IT-proof. Cassandra was playing dirty. She called Theo, her voice shaking with adrenaline. "I've got something," she said, pacing her loft. "Financial records, hidden accounts. Cassandra's been stealing from WardenTech. I think she's trying to tank your project to take your job." Theo was quiet for a moment. "Lila, that's huge and dangerous. If you're right, she'll come for you." "She already has," Lila said, thinking of the texts. "But I'm not backing down. Can you get me into the office tomorrow? I need to show this to Walter." "Done," Theo said. "But you're not doing this alone. I'm with you." The next day, Lila and Theo presented the evidence to Walter in his private office. The old man's face was unreadable as he scrolled through the files on Lila's laptop. "This is damning," he said finally, his voice low. "Cassandra's been with us for years. I didn't see this coming." "I did," Lila said, her voice steady. "She's been after me since the gala. I think she knows about my mom's connection to WardenTech. Maybe that's why she's so threatened." Walter's eyes sharpened. "Your mother, Lila Kessler?" Lila nodded, her throat tight. "I found her journal. She pitched a prototype like yours in 2004. Then she left. I don't know why." Walter leaned back, his expression softening. "Alina was brilliant. Worked with me briefly, but she wanted her own path. I didn't know she had a daughter." He paused, then smiled. "You're like her, Lila, fearless." Lila's eyes stung, but she held it together. "I just want the truth. and I want Theo's project to succeed. Walter nodded. You've got my respect, young lady. Let's handle Cassandra. At an emergency board meeting, Lila presented the evidence, her voice steady as she walked them through the financial trail. Cassandra's face was a mask of calm, but her eyes betrayed panic. This is absurd, she said, standing. Fabricated nonsense from a desperate freelancer. Then explain the accounts, Lila shot back, projecting the files on the screen. Every transaction's timestamped, linked to you. The board erupted in murmurs. Walter stood, his voice cutting through. Cassandra, you're suspended pending investigation. Lila, you've done us a service. As Cassandra stormed out, her heels echoing, Theo squeezed Lila's hand. You're incredible, he whispered, his eyes shining with something more than gratitude. But as Lila left the office, her mother's journal tucked in her bag. She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd only scratched the surface. Cassandra was down, but not out, and the truth about her mom was still out there, waiting to be uncovered. The late summer sun dipped low over Asheville, painting the Blue Ridge Mountains in shades of orange and purple as Lila Kessler stood on the rooftop terrace of WardenTech's office. The city sprawled below, a tapestry of twinkling lights and historic buildings with the faint strum of a busker's guitar drifting up from Pack Square. Lila's chestnut hair fluttered in the breeze, and she clutched the prototype energy device Theo had given her at the gala, its green light still pulsing like a quiet promise. It had been a week since she'd exposed Cassandra Holt's corruption. In front of the WardenTech board, a moment that had cemented her as more than just Theo's fake fiancée. She'd saved his wind turbine project, earned Walter Warden's respect, and uncovered a clue about her mother's past with the company. But now, with the 3-month charade nearing its end, Lila felt a knot in her chest. What came next? Her phone buzzed with a text from Nora. You're a badass, but you owe me details. Dinner tonight. Lila smiled, typing back. Deal, 7 p.m. at the Admiral. Nora had been her rock through this whirlwind, even if she'd been skeptical. About the fake engagement, Lila owed her a full explanation. Maybe an apology for keeping secrets, like the journal of her mother, Lila Kessler, which hinted at a mysterious connection to WardenTech. Footsteps behind her broke her thoughts. Theo Warden stepped onto the terrace, his dark hair catching the golden light, his blue eyes softer than usual. He wore a simple button-down sleeves rolled up and carried 2 glasses of iced tea. Figured you might need a break from staring. At that prototype, he said, handing her a glass with a crooked smile, you've been glued to it all week. Lila laughed, taking the drink, her fingers brushing his. The touch sent a familiar spark through her, one she'd been trying to ignore since the gala. It's kind of my good luck charm now, she said, holding up the device. Plus, it's cool tech. I'm still geeking out over it. Theo leaned against the railing, his gaze on the mountains. You're not the only one. The board approved the turbine project this morning, full funding, green light for construction. It's happening, Lila, because of you. Her heart swelled, but she waved him off. I just found some files. You're the one who sold the vision? Don't do that, Theo said, turning to face her. His voice was low, earnest. You went toe-to-toe with Cassandra, cracked her scheme, and held your own with a room full of suits who didn't know what hit them. You're a force, Lila Kessler, she blushed, looking away, the weight of his words settling over her. The past week had been a blur after exposing Cassandra's siphoning of funds. The board had suspended her, and an investigation was underway. Walter had been gruffly impressed, calling Lila a chip off Alana's block. The mention of her mother had reopened old wounds, but also gave her purpose. She'd been digging deeper into Elena's journal, finding more sketches that matched. WardenTech's early designs. Her mom had been part of something big, and Lila was determined to uncover the full story. But now, standing here with Theo, the project wasn't the only thing on her mind. Their fake engagement was supposed to end. Tomorrow, the contract fulfilled, she'd get her funding, launch her APO platform for sustainable tech startups, and move on. So why did the thought of leaving Theo make her chest ache? You're quiet, Theo said, studying her. What's going on in that brilliant head of yours? Lila took a sip of iced tea, stalling. Just thinking about what's next. The deal's almost up. You get your project, I get my app. We did it, right? Theo's smile faded, and he set his glass down, turning to face her fully. Yeah, we did, but I've been thinking too. About us, her breath caught us. Theo, we had rules. No falling for each other, remember? I'm not great at following rules, he said, stepping closer. His voice was soft, but there was a fire in his eyes. Lila, this started as a crazy plan, but somewhere along the way, it stopped being fake for me. You're not just a partner in this, you're you. I don't want to lose that. Lila's heart pounded, her mind screaming to keep it professional, but her body leaned toward him. Theo, this is insane. We barely know each other. What if this is just adrenaline? The gala, Cassandra, all of it. Then let's find out, he said, his hand brushing her cheek, sending a shiver down her spine. I'm not asking for forever not yet, but I want to try this for real. No contracts, no charades, just us. She stared at him, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, the mountains stretching endlessly behind him. She thought of her mom, who'd chased her dreams fearlessly, even if it meant leaving WardenTech. Lila had spent years playing it safe, rebuilding after her startup's collapse, but Theo made her want to take a risk. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Let's try. Theo's grin was blinding, and before she could overthink it, he kissed hers low, deliberate. Nothing like the impulsive kiss in the cafe that started it all. This one was real, and it made her knees weak. When they pulled apart, she laughed, breathless. You're gonna get me in trouble, Warden. Worth it, he said, his arm around her waist. Later that evening, Lila met Nora at the Admiral, a dimly lit dive bar with worn wooden tables and the smell of fried pickles in the air. Over beers, she told Nora everything: the fake engagement, Cassandra's downfall, her mom's journal, and Theo's confession. Nora's jaw dropped. You're actually dating him now. Lila, you're living a movie, maybe, Lila said, grinning, but it feels real. Scary, but real. Nora raised her glass. To you, badass coder and CEO whisperer, just don't forget me when you're famous. Never, Lila said, clinking glasses, her heart full. The next day, Walter called Lila and Theo to his office, a cozy space filled with old engineering books and photos of wind turbines. His silver hair gleamed as he leaned back in his chair, a proud smile on his face. You two pulled it off, he said. The project's a go, Cassandra's out, and the board's eating out of your hand. Theo, and you, Lila, you're something else. Lila blushed. Just doing what I do, Walter. Don't sell yourself short, he said, his eyes twinkling. Your mother would be proud. Elena had that same fire. I'm sorry I didn't connect the dots sooner. Lila's throat tightened. You knew her well. Well enough, Walter said, his voice softening. She left to start her own path, but her ideas shaped our early work. You're carrying her torch, whether you know it or not. Theo squeezed her hand, and Lila managed a nod. I'm starting to see that. Walter leaned forward, sliding an envelope across the desk. As promised, your funding. 200 grand for your app, but I'm adding a bonus WardenTech's backing your startup as a partner. Think of it as a wedding gift, whenever you two get there. Lila's eyes widened. Walter, that's too much. Nonsense, he said, waving her off. You earned it. Both of you. As they left the office, Theo pulled Lila close, the city unfolding below them. So, what's the plan, Kessler? World domination with your app? She laughed, leaning into him, maybe. But first, I want to figure out the rest of my mom's story. And U.S. Theo kissed her forehead. We've got time. As they walked into the Asheville sunset, Lila felt a weight lift. The charade was over, but something better had begun: a partnership, a love, a legacy. Her mom's journal was still a mystery, but with Theo by her side and her app taking shape, Lila was ready for whatever came next.